Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I'm your host, Tommy McIntyre Jr. Well, the Sixers suffered another critical loss. Ben Simmons down with a broken foot. We'll be talking the 76ers and the Phillies season coming to an end. Ryan Howard played his last game for the Phillies over the weekend. And we're talking Eagles. Lions are the next opponent for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's going to be a tough one, but we're looking forward to it. We're going to be talking all that and more coming up on Sports Talk Philadelphia.
3, 2, 1. You'll never have the sacred stone. Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hello and welcome back. All right, so let's talk a little Sixers. Josh Abrams coming on to talk a little for us today. Thanks for coming on, first time on the show. And Kevin Cook as well joining us today. All right, Sixers, right? Ben Simmons, broken foot. You can get the graphic of him. I mean, we've all seen him. #1 pick, was highly touted coming out of LSU. Definitely had some problems there in terms of people thought teammate-wise, they didn't know. The season didn't turn out as well as you would have liked in college. But there was a lot of excitement in the city, especially to see the Sixers, Joel Embiid coming back, Dario Saric finally coming over from overseas. And to come down with a huge injury in the last day of preseason had to be tough for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this injury is a very, very tough loss, obviously. The Sixers were trying to build all of these young guys to form into a nice team, and then all of a sudden, last day of training camp, if my memory serves me correctly, Ben Simmons goes down with an injury. And then I was a little bit optimistic. I thought the injury wasn't going to be as serious. I heard it was just a fracture. And then I hear that it's a broken foot and that he's going to miss the opener and not play until, December, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So this is really tough. It's heartbreaking. It's disappointing. Some fans, some of my friends, that I know that are huge Sixers fans, were screaming at the walls. They were ready to, It's just very hard to take in the fact that their #1 pick is not playing opening day, and some people were going to opening day to see Ben Simmons play. This was going to be his legit NBA debut. No more summer league, no more college ball. This is going to be the real deal. And now, it kind of ruins their motivation a little bit to go to the opening day game.
And Kevin, Josh kind of talked a little bit about this. When I got the first report of the injury, it was a report of like a kind of a sprained ankle or like a really bad ankle injury that he suffered in a training camp. They were like, all right, we're going to check for X-rays. I was a little like, uh-oh, another injury. But when they said ankle, and like they said that, it seemed like, all right, maybe this is precautionary, which I understand considering their history with guys like Nerlens Noel, Joel Embiid, and then even Jahlil Okafor was late with the knee injury at the end of last year. But you see the news, broken foot. It's to be exact, the 5th metatarsal bone, which is the Jones fracture that Kevin Durant suffered a couple seasons ago. Not as bad as Joel's. We do have to put that out there. And he's not a center like him, but he is a big dude. And this is something that he's going to have to take careful precaution of. What did you kind of think of this injury?
Yeah, same. Just like you guys both said, when the report first came out, there's no way that we thought that it was as serious as it was going to be. Initially, I thought he probably just rolled his ankle and, he came up a little limp, and they said, you know what, like last day, like just go ahead, sit down, rest, because this isn't, training camp and preseason doesn't mean anything compared to what he's going to be for the rest of the year. And it's heartbreaking injury to have your #1 pick, the next LeBron and the LeBron of the franchise, the guy who you fully hand over the helms to, and expect him to be playing for you night in, night out, and putting up good numbers for you. It's pretty sad to see a guy of that caliber go down, and before we even get a taste. And it was so close. Fans were excited. We were ready for a player to latch on to, someone that we haven't seen in the Sixers uniform since Iverson's left. So to have Simmons go down before we even get just a taste of him in regular season play, it's definitely heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to take right after it happened. I think when I heard it, I was like, "Are you serious? Like, we're cursed at this point." That's a lot of the thing on Twitter. You saw like, "Are we just cursed? Are we just a cursed city?" Well, one of those guys that came back from an injury, Joel Embiid, played in his first NBA game or really just basketball game in general, 2.5 years. You have to think about that. He was hurt in college at Kansas with a back injury. Then he decides to enter into the NBA draft. Going to be the consensus #1 pick. Cleveland Cavaliers were going to take him. Suffers a broken foot right before the draft. Slips down to the Sixers at 3. We draft him. Think it's only going to take a year. Turns out the end of last year, the end of the beginning of last year's season, find out he can't play again. It's a re-injury, but he comes out, plays his first game. He was on a 12-minute restriction. Winds up playing a little bit over that to like around 13 minutes. Shows a lot of really skill. You got to give him credit. Comes out first game, shows heart, shows knowledge on the court, even yelling at teammates to get at their certain spots, which was fun to see. What did you see from him, and how does it feel to finally see him on the court?
Well, I think it's a huge relief to finally see Joel Embiid get on the court. Like you said, I think it was 2014 or 2013, one of the years we drafted him, and we're like, okay, is he just a lump in our organization, or is he going to actually play? And finally, he plays. He did only have 6 points, and like you said, it was only in 13 minutes. But I think we're expecting him to have restricted minutes probably throughout the entire season because he's trying to, ease himself in rather than like go right into it and highly risk an injury. I saw his really nice block on I think Jaylen Brown, the sophomore player for the Celtics. So
Rookie. Yeah, he's a rookie this year.
Oh, okay. So Joel Embiid with that play and just getting on the court, I think will have us be more optimistic, obviously, because now we know that he's starting to become more healthy.
Now, Kevin, your thoughts as well on Joel Embiid, just finally seeing him.
Now, I was talking about how heartbreaking of a loss Ben Simmons was. The best news about Ben Simmons getting hurt was that it wasn't Joel Embiid, because we have waited for so long to see this guy play in a Sixers uniform, and finally, after 831 days, I think it was, after we drafted him, 900 and some days since he last played college ball, we finally saw Joel Embiid return to the court, and in the beginning, it was a little bit rusty, and you saw some of the talent that was there. You saw some of the fadeaway shots that he was taking. He was missing them early on. But then as the game went on, he started making some shots. He got a feel for the ball as he was dribbling down the floor. At one point, he went coast to coast, kind of. And you saw that the talent is there. He even stepped back and hit a deep 2. So you know that the talent is there with this guy. And now you're just waiting for it all to come into fruition, for him to be fully healthy and in game shape. Because like I was saying, I mean, this guy hasn't played in an NBA, or hasn't ever played in an NBA game, and he hasn't played at a game pace in the longest time. He's been under all these restrictions and whatnot because of his foot injury and his at practice. So finally to see him on court, it was really nice.
Well, it's going to be an interesting year. Obviously, expectations have lowered a lot, not seeing Ben Simmons, but we got to see Joel Embiid for the first time in so forever, really, it feels like. And the homie Dario, man, coming over to Philly and really showing some solid play. I'm really looking forward to him to play as well. But let's go to another team, a team that in Philadelphia that just ended their season, the Philadelphia Phillies. It was a tough year. Once again, obviously, we're coming into this rebuild. We knew it wasn't going to be a team that was going to make the playoffs. They showed some kind of like some cool stuff early on in the year. We were like, oh man, this team could be better. Then they start to die off. Their offense was obviously a critical part of that, and then their pitching suffered some as well. Josh, what are you going to look at on this season as a whole, and where do you see this team going?
Well, when the Phillies got off to that 24-17 start in the beginning of the year, I was very surprised. I think we all were surprised. Tied for first in the National League East, and we're thinking, I forget who they beat to go 24-17, but we had a lot of optimism. But then they go on the road to the Chicago Cubs, who have the best record in the league going into the playoffs right now. And then they just started to kind of die off, and they didn't do very well. And I look at some highlights of the season, like Vince Velasquez's 16 Ks against San Diego. That was really nice to see that. But the thing is with young pitchers is that they come into the league and, they have brand new stuff that, not many players have seen before. They face them again, they figure them out. You have these veteran hitters going up against Vince Velasquez, Aaron Nola even, and then Jared Eichhoff, Jeremy Hellickson, all of our pitchers, they did fine, but the hitters really figured them out, and I think that was one of the problems with getting beat up so bad during some of those games. But overall, I was happy with the record. They finished, I think, 7 or 8 games better than they did last year, and they showed some promise. They really did. Tommy Joseph, Maikel Franco, Cameron Rupp, those 3 are probably our power hitters for the future, hopefully, assuming we keep the 3 of them. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how obviously we wanted to go to the playoffs always, but I'll take it as it is right now, and hopefully by the time in a couple years we should be a playoff contending team.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unroll there. Kevin, what were your kind of feelings of the season? I know we talked about this the last couple weeks, but now that it's finally over, where can we go from here? Obviously, I've seen a lot more of the Phillies owner, actually. He's had more interviews lately of where this team's going to go in the future. Where do you see them going?
I think that they're heading in the right direction. That's up. Obviously, like Josh was saying, they started off real strong, and they kind of teetered off towards the end. And I think a lot of that was because of young pitching. It's difficult for a young pitcher to keep consistency because they're not used to going in and out of the daily life of an MLB baseball player. So I do think that was a big reason for why they teetered off. But as far as the future goes, I think that they're on the up and up because of the young talent that they got. We saw what some of these young pitchers are capable of, and I think that as their career goes on, we're going to see a lot more of what we saw in the beginning of the year rather than what we saw towards the end of it.
And to kind of talk a little bit about the past now, obviously, is Ryan Howard. Played his last game. They had a great celebration for him on his last game at Citizens Bank Park. The fans really came out and showed a lot of love. He's had a love-hate relationship, obviously, the fans with him. And I guess that's duly noted considering, I mean, he's an inconsistent power guy. After he had that big contract, he fell off. He really never earned that contract afterward. The contract is always in baseball. You kind of get paid for what you did, not what you're going to do, and that's obviously true for Ryan Howard. And they're going to let him go. That's pretty obvious. And does he have what I guess first question is, does he have a shelf life left in this league? And what are your kind of thoughts about him in his career?
Well, I would hope that he has something left in the tank for him to go to maybe an American League team and be a DH. That would be a good fit for him. But if not, overall he had, I'd say, an incomplete career, only because, yes, he had those really nice years from 06 to 09 when he was arguably the best hitter in the league. 58 home runs in 06 got him the MVP. And then he was also NLCS MVP in 09. So he really did a lot for this franchise. And, I think we all need to thank Ryan Howard because, without him, even though it is a team game to win a World Series, without him, we might not win the World Series. So he had those really good years from 06 to even 2011. He was still hitting 30 and 100. But as soon as he tore his Achilles in Game 5 of the NLDS of 2011, that's when it all went downhill. He couldn't adjust his game, and good hitters, like really good hitters, should be able to adjust their game, be able to hit home runs in different spots, even with an injury, even with a bad injury. And Howard just wasn't able to do that. And minor injuries here and there kept him from playing at the rate he was back then. So I think that's the one thing fans will always have on him.
Yeah, definitely Ryan Howard is a guy that I'm always going to appreciate, a huge fan of, had posters of him in the wall with the likes of Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins. We're going to take a break and come back and talk some Eagles. I want to thank Kevin Cook for coming on. You're going to stick around, Josh, to talk a little Eagles, and Kyle McIntosh will be on Talk Eagles. Stick around. You really know how to talk, Josh.
Oops. Sorry.
Get on top of it before they do. Every 24 minutes, tipped furniture or a falling TV sends an injured child to the emergency room. Preventing tip-over incidents is easy, inexpensive, and only takes 5 minutes. Learn how to secure your furniture and TVs to protect children at anchorit.gov.
Hello and welcome back. So we added Kyle McIntosh to talk a little Eagles for this huge game coming up against the Detroit Lions, and Josh is sticking around for us as well to talk. But Kyle, started off, man, Eagles, what a great start to the season. And when you talk about a team being undefeated, really the only one left is Minnesota, the team that has their old quarterback in Sam Bradford. But it's been a kind of a weird bye week considering that we start off the season so well. We've kind of been in like honeymoon phase right now with the whole team. Will this last though? And do you think they can, obviously you've already predicted what your score is and we'll show that a little later, but can this team hold this on for the rest of the season?
I definitely think that we have a strong chance of really just taking this win streak and just extending it as long as possible. The only team I'm really worried about is the Vikings. I think that their defense will be the toughest one we'll play, even tougher than the Seahawks defense. With that game, you know, Sam Bradford's getting more comfortable with that offense. They have some pretty good weapons in Charles Johnson and Stephon Diggs, and we'll have to deal with that on our defense. And then, looking towards like the Seahawks, I know Russell Wilson hasn't had a very, very strong year. He's been injured. They haven't really produced a lot offensively, and I think our defense will be able to hit them a little harder than they can hit ours. So I definitely think that we'll be in the playoffs, definitely. Looking at the way we're playing now, as long as we can keep that consistency going, we'll be good.
Oh, I like that confidence, man. Playoffs already. Well, let's actually just get this graphic up for the prediction. Why not? We'll go to Josh, though, first on this. So you have decided that the Eagles are going to win this game, and we've been picking Eagles all week. Why stop now? And you got actually Ryan Matthews coming back from an injury. He did have a great game before the injury. Then he didn't play, and we saw some other running backs come in like Smallwood. But you feel that the Eagles are going to win 34-14, and Ryan Matthews is going to be a guy that's going to be critical for him.
Yeah, I think that when Matthews comes back from the injury, I think he's going to have some sort of motivation in him to, you know, play as best as he can, like he always does. But since he is coming back from, I think it was an ankle injury.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just going to drive him, you know, to just run up the middle, you know, cut, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think with the Lions' offense and consistency there, Eagles defense should be able to get on Matthew Stafford pretty well.
I think I saw some highlights of their last game, Detroit, in terms of their offensive line, and I'm definitely sure the guys like Fletcher Cox and Benny Logan and all the defensive line really has been watching that because they've been a huge part of this team's success. And Kyle, what did you also made a prediction the Eagles going to win, but you have Jordan Matthews, the other Matthews on the team, as your MVP. Why'd you pick him? I
definitely picked Jordan Matthews because I feel like it's about time for him to really kick it up. We already know that he's a dedicated player. He's always practicing from the crack of dawn. It's just one thing, having to catch the football. He has made some good catches. He made some pretty bad drops. Luckily, we've had enough production in the end zone that we really haven't had to worry about that. But coming up against these stronger defenses, every touchdown counts. But I think Jordan Matthews is going to make a statement with this game versus the Lions. Jim Schwartz already knows that defense, so he's not going to have to. The Lions are really going to get up on us like we're going to get up on them. So I really think Jordan Matthews is going to be the player to watch this week.
And the guy that's going to be throwing the ball, Carson Wentz, is, of course, the talk of the town. And he's going to be my MVP this game because I feel like why throw it away now? I need him to win because we want him to win. And 28-20 is the score. I didn't have as high as you guys. I never know what these scores nowadays, especially what we did to the Steelers. Then the Steelers come out and absolutely kill the Kansas City Chiefs this past weekend. It just shows that any week a new team can just change the whole landscape of the league, and it's still very early on. We've seen in the past teams that start off the season undefeated or very well fall off. So it's still going to be interesting to see, but I do think that a guy like Carson Wentz is going to be critical for the team to continue to succeed and make the playoffs, as you said. Josh, what do you kind of think the defense in this game, particularly against a guy like Matthew Stafford, is going to have to do?
Well, obviously they're going to have to pressure that offensive line that you said was struggling against Chicago last week. Fletcher Cox, if it wasn't for Ryan Matthews, I would have put him as my MVP because Fletcher Cox is arguably the best defensive end or defensive player in the league. So obviously the D-line's going to probably going to have to push the O-line back as far as they can. And then the corners, I think, as far as I know, I think they're going to have a field day with their wide receivers. I don't see the line scoring a lot, so I think this is the defense's game to really shine.
Kyle, do you agree with that? You think this is a game for the defense to continue their great start to the season?
I definitely agree with that. I know I made the comparison between Roethlisberger and Stafford last week, and just to kind of talk about that a little more, I know Stafford he's another strong arm quarterback. He can throw the ball down the field, but as long as we can make sure we play man coverage right, make sure McLeod continues to pronounce McLeod, one of those. Make sure he can keep on producing, as a pretty good defensive back acquisition we made this offseason. And as long as we can do that, we know Fletcher Cox, Benny Logan, these guys are just going to destroy Matthew Stafford. I can tell it now.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the game. It's kind of been a weird week, being a bye week so early on. You usually have a little more time for this. A lot of controversies happening on with the Eagles and off the field, so definitely try to hopefully get that together for the game on Sunday. But that's going to do it for Eagles talk. We're going to go into Fast Five now. To start it off, Kyle, going back to the Eagles a little bit, but more just the NFC East. You got a guy in Dak Prescott on the Cowboys who's been doing very well also, a rookie quarterback drafted in the 4th round. But between him and Carson Wentz, who is going to throw the first interception?
Looking at both of these quarterbacks, it looks pretty good for the NFC East. We're finally going to become a more competitive division, something that is good for NFC East football altogether. And when looking at both of the quarterbacks, the way Wentz plays and the way Prescott plays, I think Prescott is going to throw an interception sooner just because of what I've seen Carson Wentz being just really good. He's always composed. He's always focused. There was a couple of chance throws he's made in the past 3 games, but I think he's always paying attention to that. Well, I think Dak Prescott doesn't have as good of a quarterback coach, and I think he's going to maybe make that mistake just a little sooner.
Now, Josh, quickly, who will have more points for the Flyers this year? We haven't really talked Flyers too much yet. They're still in the preseason. But between Giroux and Voracek, who do you think is going to stand out most points this year? I know Giroux's a guy that can definitely get involved both in the assist game and in the goals game.
Yeah, what you just said about Giroux really has me intrigued about that question.
Yeah.
I think Giroux will slightly edge out Voracek only because Giroux is, I think, the guy who you want because he can do everything.
Yeah.
He facilitates very well. He has a very nice shot. I think Giroux will slightly edge out Voracek, but don't expect the numbers to be very low. I think both of them will have another very good year.
All right. How many sacks for Kyle? How many sacks for Fletcher Cox this season? What do you think his number will be?
I think he's going to finish the season off with about 16 or 17 sacks.
You think he's going to get that much inside?
I think
we're talking about a guy that's a defensive tackle, not a defensive end.
Yeah,
so
he's going to penetrate. He's going to get there. His numbers have been climbing, ever since he came in the league starting for the Eagles. It's going to get there. The 4-down lineman is going to be the biggest contributor to that. Obviously, if we're in a 3-4, he wouldn't get that many. I would say he would get like maybe 8. But I feel like if he can continue penetrating, he's going to get 16 sacks.
All right, and Josh, we talked some Sixers. Who are you most excited now with Ben Simmons out? Who left now? I guess you got guys like Dario, Joel Embiid we talked about, maybe even some veteran guys coming over like Sergio Rodriguez. Who are you most excited to see this season? For the time being, we don't know when Ben Simmons is going to get back.
Well, that's a very tough question, but I have to go with Dario Saric. We haven't really seen many highlights of him. He played overseas. We saw Joel Embiid in college, so we have at least an idea of what he plays like, and we also saw him in the preseason games. So now we have an idea of how he's going to play. But I think Dario Saric is really going to be kind of the underrated prospect out of all the ones the Sixers have.
And final question, Kyle, for this week's game, another Eagles question. What do you think is going to be the turnover? How many turnovers do you think the Eagles need this game to win? They've been a turnover machine. They haven't turned the ball themselves on offense, so it's probably going to be a critical part of this one. How many turnovers?
I think we're going to get 3 more turnovers. We're definitely going to make sure that we can stop Golden Tate from getting too open, and if we can exploit that, that matchup, we'll be able to take away 3 turnovers. We're going to get a fumble recovery.
Oh, I like it. I like the confidence.
Brandon Graham's going to get another.
I like Kyle's confidence. All right, I want to thank my guests once again, Kevin Cook for coming on talking a little Phillies and Sixers, as well as Josh staying on for the whole show, which I really appreciate, and Kyle coming on to talk Eagles. My name is Ty McIntyre Jr. You can catch me on Twitter, as long as the rest of us. If you look at the bottom of the screen, the whole show, you can see our Twitter handles. You can catch us on Facebook as well, on YouTube. You can email us. You can find us on the web. Each Thursday, this show is on 10:30, so please check us out. Yeah, that's going to do it for another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Tune in next week, please, and we're going to bring you all Eagles highlights from this upcoming game against Detroit. Thanks so much.